Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram Satgurum Brahma Vidvaram. 25th verse, we'll chant together. Daivameva pare yajnam yoginah paryupasate brahmagnava pare yajnam yajnenaivopajuhvati shrotraadinindriyanyanye sanyamagnishu juhvati shabdadin vishayananye indriyagnishu juhvati sarvanindriya karmani pranakarmani chapare atma sanyama yogagnau juhvati jnana dipite dravya yajnastapo yajnaha yoga yajnastatha pare swadhya yajnana yajnascha yataya samshitavrataha. It is said, whatever is unattended, whatever is allowed to be in whatever state it wants, that thing doesn't benefit us too much. On the other hand, if we can restrain and regulate any flow, that flow can be harnessed for a greater good. In these techniques of yajna, Bhagavan is telling us the same point. This mind is such, if it is allowed to be the way it wants, that kind of a mind is not going to serve us much good. That same mind which can be tuned, which can be trained, which can be regulated, that mind will bless us with lot of happiness. That is the main topic here, the topic of yajna. Water flowing is good. You can take delight, just appreciate it. But you cannot harness that water unless there is some obstruction in between and regulation in between. That regulated water has lot of potential. Our mind is also like that. You allow this mind to do whatever it wants, it will take us for a ride. So this yajna portion is that where Bhagavan is insisting that this instrument that you have with yourself is a very delicate instrument. Delicate instrument, one should know how to handle it. Guruji says you should not take a DC tape recorder and plug it into a socket. Means whatever is the instrument, we should know how to deal with it. Bhagavan is telling us here how to deal with this mind. First technique, first yajna, he said, do puja. Daivam eva apare yajnam. Worship the Lord with lot of faith, with lot of dravya. Second one, he said, meditate upon this truth. Brahmagnau apare yajnam, yajne naivopa juhvati. Whatever has been said in Vedanta, whatever we have understood in Vedanta, constantly reflecting upon it and trying to remove this individuality from ourselves. Trying to remove this notion I am this jiva. That itself is one form of yajna. So this was the second type. Third one, Bhagavan said, Sanyama. Sanyama is the fire. In that you are offering all the sense organs. Means sense organs folded back. Person who is very withdrawn. That is the third type of yajna, living a life of solitude. If not for an extended period of time, at least for some portion in the day, carving out that time for quietude, for solitude. This was the third yajna. Fourth one, Bhagavan said, you can't sit in one place all the time. When you are interacting with the world, making sure that we are very alert about all transactions. He said sense organs will become the fire, sense objects will become the offering. Aviruddha Vishaya Grahanam. Aviruddha Vishaya Grahanam means making sure that mind doesn't go in any place which is adharmic. Mind doesn't go in any place which is adharmic. 4 done. 4 types of yajnas. We can pick whichever one we want, but Bhagavan is just listing all of it in one place. 5th one was life of Ashtanga Yoga, where Sarvani Indriya Karmani and Prana Karmani. The actions in the world means yama, niyama, everything was followed. And pranayama was also practiced. In the fire of no, that is good. But I would appreciate if everybody comes before 9. 9 o'clock, all of you should settle. In between, if you keep walking, it disturbs a lot. When all of you present, right, I will try that. Suddenly I'll get up, I'll go behind, come in front. This was the 5th one, where he says all the Ashtanga Yoga, Yama and Niyama, they are followed, and very sincerely the sadhaka is practicing that in the fire of Atma Sanyama, self-control. In the fire of self-control, but jnana dipite, not taking anything out of aviveka, being very alert about what is his body demanding and taking sadhanas in that light. Then we saw a few more. Dravya Yajna means he gives dhanam on some auspicious day, at some auspicious time. Then Yoga Yajna or Tapo Yajna was related to Upavasa. More austerities with regards to food that we eat. And Yoga Yajna is Ashtanga Yoga. Again, this point Bhagavan is emphasizing even more. And Swadhyaya Yajna means he does Vedic chanting. Jnana Yajna means he also tries to learn the meaning of that. Tries to learn the meaning of that. Yatayaha samshita vrataha. He is constantly putting forth effort. Not that one day he does puja, second day he forgets. After some time again he picks up. But he does it as a niyama. Does it as a vratam. That is this point, samshita vrataha. Samshita word, what was the meaning of the word samshita? Sharpened. Trying for perfection in and through that yajna. Making sure that mind is actually there when we are doing this practice. In Hindi we say, dhyan dijiye. Dhyan dijiye means what? Pay attention. Meaning, wherever our attention is, there our mind is. Now suddenly if I ask you, did you hear what I said? If you say no, means where my attention was not, there my mind was not. So samshita vrata means that. He has the ability to put his mind where he really wants to put. And it is not an overnight journey. He has worked on it for a long time. Again and again this mind knocks him down. Again he gets up. Again fights with this mind. That is his journey of a sadhaka. Atma Sanyama Yogagna, the control of sense organs. There is one famous shloka in Valmiki Ramayana. Valmiki Ramayana shloka is Naham Janami Keyure, Naham Janami Kundale. When Sugriva brings all the ornaments, Bhagwan takes them and shows it to Lakshmanji. He says, Lakshmanji, do you recognize these? Do you think it's Sitaji's? He says, Bhagwan, I don't know her kundala. I don't know any of the ornaments except for the one that she wears on her foot, anklets. Naham janami keyure, naham janami nupure. I don't know earrings, I don't know any other ornaments. Bangles also I don't know. All I know is the anklets. Nityam padabhi vandanat. Because all the time my darshan was on the feet of Sitaji. That alertness in Vyavahara, he says that is also one type of yajna. Now comes one yajna which is not our forte, okay, which is on pranayama. We should just appreciate the meaning. Whoever knows it, if somebody is interested, under their guidance we should study. Apane juhvate pranam, prane panam tatha pare, pranapanagati ruddhva, pranayama parayanaha, apane juhvate pranam, prane panam tatha pare, pranapanagati ruddhva, pranayama parayanaha. Now Patanjali Maharshi says, regulating and controlling the breath is pranayama. But within that, there are nuances. The first one is the part of the body in which that breath is controlled. All the vayus which are there, he says you can control it at different parts of the body and for what duration it is controlled. All of that adds into this practice of pranayama. He says there are some people who do apane juhvati pranam. Means they focus on the puraka pranayama. Puraka means you are filling in the breath. They say, right, inhale, exhale. So the inhale one they are focusing on more, and that vayu they are offering it into the rechaka. Okay. And the other one is focusing more on rechaka. They are focusing more on the exhale. And in between the inhale and exhale, holding the breath is called as kumbhaka. That is the third one. Prana pana gati ruddhva, pranayama parayanaha. Means in simple words, they have mastered their pranas. Do you know any examples in our scriptures or in Puranas where people have mastered their pranas? Dronacharya. Ashwathama hataha, when he hears, he gives up his prana through his yogagni. Means he folds one prana into the another and then goes to higher worlds. Another example is Satiji in the court of Daksha. When she is insulted, it is said through yogagni, means by regulating these pranas. The prana which ejects the jiva out is samana vayu, udana vayu, udana vayu. Udana means it is ejecting it out. But if somebody is able to do it out of one's own choice, that is his mastery over all pranas. In case of other jivas, this jiva goes through all other pranas and finally ends in udana. There is no choice. But in somebody who has mastered it, for them it is a choice. our Raman Maharshi has given us a simpler technique. He says, Vayu Rodhanat Liyate Manaha. The mind calms down, mind quietens down just by observing the breath. That itself is a great sadhana. He says breath is gross, mind is subtle. But both of them have connection. Only thing is, it doesn't stay quiet for too long. It's like a painkiller. You take it, suddenly the pain will go. But unless you address the root cause, which could be impurity in the mind, bothering mind, some kind of erroneous habits we have in vyavahara. Unless we fix that, mind is not going to stay calm for too long. No matter which pranayama you do. That is the main thing of pranayama. But good news is it will give quick result. Sadhana, if you start doing, is I have been doing for so long, still this mind has not quietened down. Okay, so I think this much is good. Next verse is more interesting, 30th one. Apare niyataharaha pranan praneshu juhvati sarve pyete yajna vidah yajna kshapita kalmashaha apare niyataharaha pranan praneshu juhvati sarve pyete yajna vidah yajna kshapita kalmashaha. Now these people who are practicing pranayama, who are practicing Ashtanga Yoga, what is it that they pay attention to? Apare niyataharaha. They are very, very careful about their food. Moderation in eating, that becomes one of their main sadhanas. You have chappan bhog, and then you say next day morning you have to do pranayama. There is one commentary on Bhagavad Geeta, which is written by Jnaneshwar Maharaj, Jnaneshwari. There he says, make your mind and pranas so subtle, like you do for cotton, having beaten it up and made into a fine, thin, thread. He says, like that, all these practices should make our prana and body and mind, everything, very, very subtle. He says, one day if we overeat, it should send triggers that you have not done the right thing. And he says that is the indication of a subtle mind. Because what happens is, the one who is telling us to eat is also the mind. The one who is telling us don't overeat also the mind. But within these two things, who wins? That is our true victory. So this one, he says, apare niyataharaha. Those people who are very, very alert about what they eat. Now Gurudev, when he explains this verse, he says eating don't get stuck only with food. We are eating through all 5 sense organs, and every sense organ is creating an impact on our mind. In Upanishad, the example is given of a cloth dipped in turmeric. He says this cloth is like a mind, and the turmeric is like vasanas. The moment you dip it there, it comes out colored. Like that, you see something, the cloth of the mind is getting dipped in the impression of that object. You hear something, another impression. Like this, all sense organs, he says the sadhaka is niyata aharaha. Very, very careful about what he sees, what he hears. Where he goes, basically. Apare niyataharaha. Gurudev says, don't make he says your mind, don't make your mind a public coffee place where anybody can come, anybody can enter and go away. He says your mind is a private home where only the one whom you want can enter. And that's how our mind is. Sometimes you don't know what is entering. Without any checks, anything can come inside. He used a very different example, but I tried to mellow it down. Coffee place is okay. He said, don't make your mind a public coffee place where anybody can come, anybody can go. So this is that niyataharaha pranan praneshu juhvati. Now this also is a technical word. Whichever prana they have mastered, in that prana they are offering all other pranas. Out of the 5 pranas, each prana they have mastered, and in that prana they are offering other prana. How to do it? I don't know. Sarve pete yajna vidaha. All of these people, starting from Daivameva pare yajnam, first yajna all the way until this 13th yajna, all of them are yajna vidaha. Means they know this yajna and they are doing it with lot of reverence. So it is one thing to know something and another thing to actually accept that thing. Now, many of us know so many things, but it is not necessary that we follow what we know. Best example is Ayurveda. All of us know, what are the good eating habits, or if you have heard somewhere. But unless the mind has really accepted it, and we have put forth effort to bring that in our diet, that person is not called as Ayurveda Vidaha. So these are those people who are Yajna Vidaha. Not only they know, they have reverence, but also they have practiced. An important word here is Sarve Piyate. There is no one Yajna greater than another Yajna. All of them will take us to our goal. Sarve Pete Yajna Vidaha. What is our goal through Yajna? Next word is beautiful. Yajnaha Kshapita Kalmashaha. Yajna is that which will remove this kalmasha. What is kalmasha? Some kind of impurity. But what is the impurity when it comes to these yajnas? First impurity is tamoguna. This sadhaka was struggling with his mind to get a disciplined routine. This kind of vratam and this kind of yajna bhavana has removed that impurity of tamoguna. That is what we had seen earlier, right? Even if the mind says no, he has developed an art of still doing it. That is what made it a yajna. Samshita vrataha, all of that was said. And another impurity is the turbulence of our mind. That mind which wanted to do whatever it wants, that he has controlled. This is, Bhagavan says, the result of yajna. Yajna kshapita kalmashaha. It will remove tamoguna and it will make this turbulent mind come under our control. This verse Gurudev says, all roads lead to Rome. All roads lead to Rome. Means the city was built in such a way, I heard, that whichever point you start, it will reach the capital. But only thing is, we should walk on one path for a long time. Sufficiently long time. You start one path, then you say maybe the other turn is better. Go on the second path, then you change the third one. So you'll be running around in paths, not reaching our goal. So somebody takes niyataharaha as yajna. That is sufficient to reach the goal. Somebody takes swadhyaya, study of shastra, as yajna. That is sufficient to reach the goal. Somebody takes discipline with speech as yajna. Whatever I want to say, even if mind wants to say, if it is not appropriate, that person will not say. He says this yajna is sufficient to make us reach the goal. Pick any one. He is not insisting on which one is greater. Even one of this yajna, if we take, it will lead us to our goal. See, kalmashaha and all other words, it should open up in our sadhana. Huh? Kalmasha means impurity. But what kind of impurity? And what are we struggling with right now that we are seeking a perspective for? That is what will open up these words more and more. Now Bhagwan gives a title to this person who is doing yajna. What title he gets? Next verse. Yajna shishtamruta bhujah yanti brahma sanatanam nayam lokostya yajnasya kutonyah kuru sattama yajna shishtamruta bhujah yanti brahma sanatanam nayam lokostya yajnasya kutonyah kuru sattama. The person who does yajna, any one of these 13 yajnas, sincerely does it, that person will get a very beautiful mind. Just like having done any auspicious action, it is said the mind should become calm and peaceful after that action. This we had seen earlier, right? If after going to a temple, we get more angry, more agitated coming home, shout at everybody at home, even if they had little bit of desire to go to temple, that will also go away. Gurudev would say the best ambassadors of dharma are those who live it. Means looking at us, if they feel, oh, if you go to temple, this is what happens. Something good, huh? Means even if that situation is very challenging, look at this person, how calmly he responded. What does he do? He goes to a temple, does sadhana. That is much more impactful than preaching about sadhana, preaching about going to temple. He says that person who is yajna shishtam rutabhujah, who does this yajna, and after this yajna, whatever remains, that he can accept, that he accepts very well. Bhujah means accepting or taking. And yajna shishta, Bhagwan calls it as amrutam, meaning that mind which has been beautified through yajna, that mind is amrutam. This is actually the name of that person. Huh? What is his name? Yajna Shishta Amruta Bhujaha Gupta. Gupta you had later, but his main name is Yajna Shishta Amruta Bhujaha. Whenever you meet him, he has a cheerful mind, a beautiful mind. Yanti Brahma Sanatanam. Arjuna, if you live your life like this, it is not too long that you will reach your goal. Yanti Brahma Sanatanam. Technical meaning of this is, if you do this meditation practices sincerely, that sadhaka will go to Brahma Loka. That sadhaka will go to Brahma Loka. Here his life will be cheerful and happy. Hereafter he doesn't have to worry, where am I headed? And there Brahmaji will teach Vedanta. That is a Siddhanta. Huh? In any loka you go, Ishtadevata becomes Upadeshaka Guru. You go to Kailasha Loka, Vata Vitapi Samipe, Bhumi Bhage Nishannam, Sakala Muni Jananam, Jnana Data Ramarat. Lord Shiva is the teacher. You go to Brahma Loka, Chandogya 7th chapter, Brahmaji opens Upanishads, starts teaching in Sanskrit. You go to any loka, it is said that Ishtadevata gives Mahavakya Upadesha. So like this he gets Krama Mukti. That is a technical way to look at Yanti Brahma Sanatam. That's how Bhagwan Shankaracharya ji has elaborated. But simpler way to look at it is, one who has an instrument very well refined, he enjoys working with that instrument. Knife, if we keep cutting, it gets blunt. and you don't enjoy cutting with a blunt knife. Even tomato you cannot cut properly. You sharpen that knife. It's a joy to work with that knife. He says our mind is also like that. This mind which has done yajna, which has been sharpened through yajna bhava, that mind is a joy to work with. It is not too long that this sadhaka will reach his goal. Yanti Brahma Sanatanam. Nayam Lokoste Yajnasya. What was the first person's name? Yajna Shishtamrita Bhuja Gupta. Now this is second person, his name is Ayajna Gupta. Means even one of the 13 yajnas he is not doing. Nasti Lokaha Ayajnasya. Bhagavan says, for somebody who is not doing even one of those 13 yajnas, even this world is not available for that person. What to talk about other worlds? Na ayam loka asti ayajnasya. If somebody is ayajna. Now see, if you want to understand the word ayajna, look at all the yajnas we had seen and see what happens if we remove them. Doesn't do any kind of puja, doesn't sit down in one place. Meditation, not heard of. Controlling sense organs, you say, why control? Let them go wherever they want. Alert transactions, you say, what is the need to distinguish between good things and bad things? And sometimes they'll use Vedanta only. Everything is Bhagwan. Why distinguish between good and bad? So that person who has not worked upon his mind, he says for him, even this life, this mind will be very, very turbulent. Now, ayam loka asti means, even here he'll be having a tough time. Have you seen horse riding? It is said horse riding is fun when you are riding the horse. If horse is riding us, then horse is having the fun. That is this mind, huh? Mind is that horse. Bhagavan uses the metaphor in 6th chapter. Aru Rukshu and Aru Ruda. Aru Rukshu means one who is trying to get on the horse. He says if this horse is turbulent, that horse is very difficult. But horse which is in my control, I can really use it. There was one rider, horse rider. Very nicely he was standing, and this horse was also very calm and quiet. So one lady goes to him and says, you have a very obedient horse. He says, yes, every time a fence comes, it stops so quickly that it wants me to go before it. All of these sadhanas which are there, bottom line is, has my mind become obedient? Does it listen to what I have to say? Does it really do what I want it to do? If that happens, that is one level of moksha. Vasana tanavam rama. Moksha iti abhidhiyate. Yoga Vasishta. The first definition of moksha is, if vasanas are thinning down and our own mind is in our control. While our Vasishta Rishi tells Bhagwan Rama, this is one level of moksha. How will we get it? Yajna Shishta Amruta Bhujaha. One yajna, at least one yajna, this person does sincerely. Nayam lokoste yajnasya kutonyaha kurusattama. Kurusattama means one who has made his lineage proud. Kuru dynasty, so many great people were there. He says, Arjuna, in companies also they have that, right? At least in organizations I know they have. They call as fellow. Means somebody who has contributed a lot to that organization. They have a title. He said, Arjuna is one of those people. But whenever Bhagwan uses this word, he has a subtle message there. Huh? He says, you have conquered so many things, achieved so many things outside. Now try to conquer your mind. Outer achievement, same mind helped. But if that mind is not in our control, what is the point of outer achievements? Have both. Have both. That is why he uses this word, Kuru Sattama, Dhananjaya hai. Dhananjaya means you have a lot of outer wealth. Now get this inner wealth also. Kutonyaha Kuru Sattama. Now Bhagwan, if he is giving some pointer, his words are itself pramanam. It's a valid means of knowledge. He doesn't have to quote any other reference. But whenever Bhagwan says anything, he says, I am not saying this interpretation out of my own mind. These yajnas have been said in Vedas. That point he is clarifying in the next verse. Evam bahuvidha yajnaha vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan vidhitan sarvan evam jnatva vimokshase evam bahuvidha yajnaha vitata brahmano mukhe karmajan vidhitan sarvan evam jnatva vimokshase. Evam bahuvidha yajnaha. Arjuna, I listed only 13, but really speaking, there are many yajnas. All of them have been told in Vedas. Vitataha means they are elaborated in Vedas. Brahmano mukhe. Brahmanaha here means Veda. Brahmana is not Brahmana. Brahmana is not Brahma. Brahmana word here means Vedas. In Vedas, lot of this elaboration is already done. Do you remember something before Bhagwan had promised? Karmanaha api bodhavyam. Bodhavyam cha vikarmanaha. Akarmanascha bodhavyam. He said, I will tell you about karma. I will tell you about vikarma. I will tell you about akarma. What was the meaning of karma there? Huh? What was the meaning of the word karma? There was a specific meaning. I had told we will refer back to it. Shastra vihita karma. Karmano api bodhavyam. He says, whatever is Shastra vihita karma, that I will tell you. But Shastra vihita karma is already told in Vedas. What is Bhagwan Krishna's addition to that? He says, I'll tell you in such a way that you can practice in your everyday life. In Kali Yuga, how to translate those yajnas in our everyday life, that I'm going to tell you. That's why he's again quoting back. In Vedas, all these yajnas are mentioned, but they have been just presented in a different way. If you directly read Upanishad mantra or if you read some Veda mantra, there this point will not become clear that controlling sense organ is one yajna. Doing pranayama is one yajna. That part he says, I have taken from Vedas only. Evam bahuvida yajnaha vitataha brahmano mukhe. They have all been elaborated in Vedas. Next line, we should reflect very closely. Karmajan vidhitan sarvan. Know that all these karmas which are there, they are born out of action. Bhagavan, until this point you are telling, do yajna, do yajna. Now suddenly you are telling, karmajan vidhitan sarvan. Means either they are born of action of speech, or mind, or physical body. Some or the other action gives rise to these yajnas. Evam jnatva vimokshase. Knowing that this whole thing is karmajan vidhitan sarvan, it is born out of karma. Knowing this, you will be liberated. Now, sometimes mathematics you have something you're deriving, right? You say step 1, step 2. Directly you jump to the last step and say, therefore, answer is this. You say, answer is this is okay, but how did you reach there? Karmajan viditan sarvan, I can understand. Suddenly, how did you reach to this point? Evam jnatva vimokshase. Having known that all this yajna are born out of karma, that you will be liberated. There is a subtle point here. Huh? All of you are ready? If you can catch this. In Vedanta, what are we striving to understand? I am that consciousness which is different from mind, different from body, different from this world. I am that substratum, that pure consciousness in which this mind appears, body appears, and the world appears. The first step towards this knowledge is to control this mind. What happens when we control this mind? This understanding should come. Controller has to be different from the controlled. Controller has to be different from the controlled. Then only we can control it, right? If it is one and the same thing, there is no controller-controlled relationship. Car cannot control the car. If I am controlling the car, that means I am the controller, car is the controlled. If I am able to control this mind, that means there has to be some entity which is different from this mind. It is said only that sadaka who is able to pay attention to the subtlety can appreciate the teaching of Vedanta. When Vedanta says I am not the mind, it is expected that he has done the first step of controlling this mind. If he doesn't do that step, then he'll be thoroughly confused or thoroughly frustrated. Why? Because on one hand you say, I am consciousness. What is bothering him? That wild horse. Turbulent horse is bothering and he is trying to seek solution in consciousness. He says consciousness will not do anything to that mind. Knowledge will only tell us, I am not this mind. How to tame this mind is part of yajna. So only that person who has distanced himself from the mind, beautified the mind, and trained this mind. For that person, Brahma Vidya is hastamalakavat. Hastamalakavat means very, very clear. Doesn't get confused. He will never make this statement, I am studying Vedanta, but I am not seeing the result of Vedanta in my life. Because what result we are actually wanting to see is at mind level. I want a mind which is obedient. I want a mind which is calm. Studying Vedanta will not give us that. I hope all of you are not surprised by this, right? And I hope you are not expecting that also. Obedient mind comes through sadhana, and for that sadhana, 13 different ways Bhagavan has pointed out. Another way in which this thought comes in our mind is, I have studied Vedanta. Now tell me, how can I practice it? How can I practice it? Now practice means what? First we have to accept that I am the one who is practicing. Means I am the one who is doing this practice. Means finitude has come there. Stepped into ahankara, and now having stepped into ahankara, we want to do some practice. Nothing wrong with it, huh? But clear understanding of Vedanta is, you are that consciousness in which this individuality appears. ability to hold on to this knowledge will depend upon how well we have trained this mind. Either it can happen instantaneously, or you do sadhana for several years, study Vedanta, get this knowledge. If it doesn't happen, then again we have to go back, prepare this mind, and come to the same point. Let me try to simplify it even more. Whenever we study Vedanta, the expression of this knowledge is really speaking in our vyavahara. If somebody says, I have studied Vedanta, I have understood the truth, but small things are sufficient to carry away his mind. Let us take an innocent example. Apare niyataharaha. Whatever thing he likes, if it comes in front, and his mind gets carried away by that thing, what do we say? Oh, look at this. I have studied Vedanta, but I am unable to practice it. So really speaking, the shortcoming is not in Vedanta. Shortcoming is in the yajna part. In the yajna part of training my mind, there I have not put forth sufficient effort. Because the truth is something which is already there. It is not attained because of sadhana. Really speaking, that is the main point of this verse. Sarve pete, the karmajan viditan sarvan, evam jnatva vimokshase. What Bhagavan wants to say is that absolute reality, Brahman, is our nature to begin with. Because we have done these 13 yajnas, that will not take us to Brahman. Gurudev would give an example. Whenever you have new building inauguration, they have a plaque, right? And they have a curtain covering that thing. Very nice stone engraved thing is there. And he would say, right at that moment, when you go to inaugurate, it will not open. That chain. Secretary from one side, president from another side. With their hooked finger, they bring it. Now, if you remove that curtain, the action of removing that curtain has not brought about that stone. Stone was already there. It was covered by this curtain. He says this Shuddha Chaitanya, which is Ananda Swarupa, of the nature of happiness, that we already are. But what is covering it is this kalmasha. What was the meaning of kalmasha we had seen? Tamoguna and turbulent mind. Means mind doesn't listen to us, doesn't do what we want to do. He said that was covering this truth. Even when mind was turbulent, was I Brahman or not? I was still Brahman. Even when mind was in tamoguna, at that time also, our nature did not change. But only thing is, what is the benefit of that knowledge if it doesn't trickle down in our vyavahara? For that, all this healthy balance is pointed out. One wing is of sadhana, another wing is of knowledge. Both have to be strong. What happens to that bird or a flight which has one wing small, another wing big? It will go in circles. Whichever side is less, it will just take round and round. It will still fly. It will just keep going in circles. You see, sometimes our knowledge wing is very big, very big. All Upanishads, Brahma Sutra, along with Bhashya, Upanishads, everything I studied. But that sadhana wing, he is flapping very hard, tiny wing. And very quickly we realize this is not taking us anywhere. Turbulent mind with lot of knowledge will become Para Upadesha Pandita. Para Upadesha Pandit means If you have any problem, come to me. I will tell you what is the nature of self, what is the nature of mind, how to take care of this mind, how you are not the body. All this is karma only. Everybody has to go through karma. That is not what we want. This is the medicine which should make us strong. That is why Bhagavan emphasizes both aspects. Sadhana part and also jnanam part. Karmajan vidditan sarvan evam jnatva vimokshase. Whatever defects are there in karma, same defects will be there in all these 13 yajnas. What are the defects in karma? That it has to be created at some time. It is not eternal. Not only created, it has to be sustained. Our kitchen cabinet, what is that? Countertop. The moment we use it, if you leave it unattended, how quickly everything falls out of place. So Gurudev says it is just the same with our mind. Whatever gets used, that gets out of place. You need some kind of special action to get it back to the same place. There are 3 words. One is called as prakriti. Prakriti means nature of a thing. The moment you use it, it undergoes vikruti. It undergoes modification, change. Because it undergoes change, we need samskruti. We have to have some kind of reset button which will take us to original state. But that limitation will be there in yajna. It is not a permanent result. You leave this mind, stop that sadhana for some time, very quickly this mind will fall back to its old habits. But if I am taking care of this mind and know my nature to be consciousness, that consciousness doesn't need maintenance. It is ever new, ever fresh. What is the word for that? Which is ancient, but it is still very new. The word is Purana. Pura api nava iti. Pura means it is ancient, but it is nava. It is very new. That is the nature of consciousness. It doesn't have any limitations of karma. So Bhagavan is telling us here, don't get stuck with one thing. Sometimes if you get stuck with sadhana, get stuck with yajna, we make that only as end goal. Bhagavan says, no, that is not the end goal. End goal is to know your nature as consciousness. That's why that word comes. Karmajan vidditan sarvan evam jnatva vimokshase. Having known the limitations of karma, one will be liberated. Next one is a beautiful verse. That is the glory of Jnana Yajna. Shreyan dravyamayad yajnat Jnana Yajna parantapa Sarvam karma khilam partha Jnane parisamapyate Shreyan dravyamayad yajnat Jnana Yajna parantapa Sarvam karma khilam partha Jnane parisamapyate. Dravyamayad yajnat means compared to worship which is done with all dravyas, all different objects. Jnana Yajna exceeds or it excels all of them. Now how will you understand this? Dravyamayad yajnat Jnana Yajna parantapa means why is Jnana Yajna Shreyan? Why does it excel compared to all other yajnas? In all other types of yajnas, our finitude is not burnt. Jivatva, this notion that I am a finite being, I am a doer and I am an enjoyer. That notion is safely protected. It is beautified, no doubt, but it is not negated. It is just like saying that illusory snake which is appearing on that rope. That snake I have befriended right now. If I go near, because I am its friend, it will not bite. It's a very good snake. It says no matter how many adjectives you give to that snake, unless you know that there is no snake, your journey is not complete. So compared to all other things which will remove the fear of that snake, this knowledge that there is no snake, that is greater. What is the snake here? Ahankara. The finite individual, the notion that I am a finite being, that is the snake. Through knowledge, knowing that this finitude itself is a false appearance. This clarity of knowledge, Bhagavan says, is the greatest. It is the most purifying. Shreyan dravyamayad yajnat Jnana Yajna parantapa. If you are getting questions, we have added a link on our website. You can go and turn in your questions also. See, whenever I look at people, you get a feedback right away. It's instantaneous feedback. If you are buying this statement, or if you have doubts, or if you have questions, and feel free to question. Why does Bhagavan say that Jnana Yajna is the greatest of all? It's not a fanatic statement. Right? Sarvam karmakhilam partha. All the karmas that we are doing, all of them end in knowledge. All the karmas end in knowledge. There is a beautiful story for this one, but that we will see in the next session. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.